The cultural mediator tells his story. It's difficult to explain in a short space of time everything that is part of it and all the rules, but we can use 3 words for the cultural mediator. Awareness, diversity, identification. Studies and research in the field of interpretation and mediation are relatively recent due to the increasing presence of foreign in various countries. In recent years, there has been a growing demand for mediators and interpreters, especially in the public service sector. There has a double rule: he or she is not a guide but provide the audience with the keys to interpretation and obviously has the task of supervising what he or she is going to tell, which is why I like to call him or her a keeper of stories. In order to briefly describe what the cultural mediator does, I approached his profession to a museum space. I could say that the typical day of a mediator is like starting to walk in this museum space among the works, looking for even a minimal approach with the visitor to make him understand the presence. We walk inside the room and wait for people to look at us, or we personally go there and ask for opinions. You really have to embrace the visitor with a big smile and enthusiasm to make it clear that we are there to welcome and accompany them. The mediator does just that. He puts himself to the test and interacts with the works of art, which for him are actually people, works of art belonging to different artists, who for the mediator want to represent the different cultures of the world. The aim of this article is to find an explanation for all the terminological confusion surrounding the concepts of interpretation and mediation, interpreter and cultural mediator. These two figures are very similar in some ways and different in others, and for this reason it is often difficult to draw the line to mark the end of the work of one and the beginning of the other. There are no official definitions, but we have basically come to the conclusion that first of all one has to take into account the field in which one works, because on this depends the behavior and the role that the interpreter and mediator can have. Over the years, the role of the classic interpreter has been flanked by that of the mediator. The figure of the interpreter has existed for much longer and in a certain sense apparently enjoys greater privileges, but the function performed by the mediator is the establishment of relations of trust with others, so his role is not purely linguistic but is thought to represent and well inserted into the situation. This quotation from Rosenberg, I would like to point out how important words are in relationship and communicative relations, but above all how their perfect rendering in other languages is fundamental. And this is why linguistic mediation plays a fundamental role and has the main objective of granting a correct linguistic exchange. The linguistic mediator is the professional figure who, thanks to in-depth knowledge of languages and excellent self-mastery, puts people who speak different languages in contact with each other. This is where cultural mediator comes in, the main purpose of which is to remove the cultural barriers that prevent communication between immigration and the institution of the host country. Quantitative informative, where the cultural mediator informs, translates, and approaches the service. Linguistic communicative, where the mediator has the task of making explicit what is implicit, clarifying certain situations that may be misunderstood. Psychosocial relational, where the cultural mediator must be able to take cover correctly within the communicative relationship using a correct approach to interaction between the two parties. Cultural, where the linguistic mediator must be able to act as a source of support for both parts and have a deep knowledge of the host country. The figure of the linguistic mediator removes barriers and obstacles that often rise in the interaction between linguistically and culturally different people. In the right relationship of mutual exchange, tolerance, and peaceful interaction, one can begin to define an internationalized, culturally diverse, linguistically intrinsic, and socially united world.